Hello everyone, welcome to my trivia channel from here in sweltering Yorktown, Virginia. Got my air conditioner cranking as you can tell. But no trivia question for this video. I want to talk about, there's a lot of people talk about the old quarterbacks weren't that good and so forth. Now I'm 57. I was born in 63, graduated high school in 1981. But my opinion is that there's great players in each era. But one thing that I haven't seen a video on yet on YouTube is to talk about the 1981 football and the pre-1981 football, because they're two very different things. And a lot of people don't realize that. In 1981, the year I graduated from high school, the NFL, and I wish I had one with me, and I'm going to see if I can find them and do another video with these three different types of footballs. Four, because I want to get the college one too. But in 1981, the NFL went to the Ultra Pebble football. Okay, and a lot of people go, well, the NFL football has been the same since 1935, right, John? No, not even close. Would a pro golfer today in 2020 go out and use a golf ball from 1980 when Jack Nicklaus played? No, they've changed a lot. And same thing with basketballs, tennis balls, bowling balls. Bowling, I mean, that's no question. You know, they've gone through so many changes. But the 1981 football changed everything, and from then on all the records went down in a hurry. 1980, and that also was combined with the fact that they started protecting the quarterbacks, the receivers, all the rules started favoring the offense, because the networks figured, the fans want scoring, which is what bowling has done, golf has done. I mean, they're shooting 62s every round on great courses. So, but the 1981 Ultra Pebble, I think that's what's called, the Ultra Pebble football. It's got those little pebbles on. You look at it, it's got those little dots, like almost like pixels on a screen, and it made it really, really grippable. And when a lot of people go, well, Joe Namath didn't have great stats. Okay, I'm not a Jets fan, but Joe Namath flew through a really slick ball compared to that 1981 football. It was hard to grip. And that's why back in the day, all those receivers and defensive backs used something called stick 'em, and it was all over. They had to. It wasn't. You couldn't really grip it. And the night football was even worse. Until 1975, they had the night football. If you go back and look, it had two white stripes on either end. And these two white stripes got slick if they got wet. And so night games, you watch the night games and go, why are there so many drop passes and interceptions? And the quarterback would sometimes throw and just lose the ball, and it kind of a comedy of errors. See, football was very different until that Ultra Pebble football came along. So once 1981 came along, then Joe Montana came along, and that West Coast offense, and all the records just started being destroyed. I'm not saying because I'm a big Joe Montana fan, so I'm not saying he's overrated, but you know, when you look at those records from the quarterback, any quarterback from before 1981, it's two different games. It really is two different games. And if you go back to Joe Namath and Johnny Unitas, those two probably had the close to most perfect form of any quarterbacks in NFL history, if you really look at it fairly. If you were asked to, you know, John Madden has said this, Bear Bryant, Bill Walsh, who coached Joe Montana, even said Joe Namath was the GOAT. So those two probably had you can't look at their numbers and go, wow, they had 200 interceptions each. And their quarterback ratings were terrible. Well, there's bums now that throw for 400 yards a game. And back then it was just rare. So when Namath and Unitas, what I'm saying is Namath and Unitas would probably be the best quarterbacks in the league today, or top five. You know, they'd be. I can't prove that, but they probably would be. It's just that much of a difference of equipment. But I think there's great quarterbacks in any era. You know, I think you take any guys from today, I think if you take the top five quarterbacks from any decade, they're legends. So Joe Namath and Johnny Unitas were the two greatest probably of the 1960s. They're legends. You never hear anybody say Jim Brown, even though Jim Brown played even earlier than them, was bad though. Because nobody wants to say Jim Brown was bad because they're just not stupid. You just don't talk about Mr. Brown, the great one. So, but you know, I see a lot of people disrespecting Joe Namath and Johnny Unitas. I'm like, no, you just got to understand it was just very different equipment. Like I said, the putters now are putting better than Tiger Woods was in his prime 20 years ago, but they're not better than Tiger Woods. I mean, they're making everything now. They just don't miss. But he was the greatest, as far as the greatest clutch putters of all time, is either him or Jack Nicklaus. I guess you could probably throw in Bobby Jones there until that disease started robbing him of his talents. But those three, you know, You know, there are a few others like a Bobby Locke or something like that, but the guys now that are putting better than Tiger Woods are not better than Tiger Woods. So it's important you understand that it's equipment. Almost all the improvements are equipment related. And there's some, we know that some athletes are taking some substances too, but that's another issue. But I think it's mostly equipment. Someone has figured out that if Jesse Owens wasn't wearing wooden shoes and wasn't running on a cinder track, he'd be about equal with Usain Bolt. And he was way back in the 30s. So it's mostly equipment, I think. I think you just have great athletes in each era. So anyway, I'm kind of rambling on and about it. I wish I had those footballs. But, oh, by the way, I want to mention Joe Namath threw something called the J5V or J5V in college. It was like a rugby ball. I remember because when I was a flag football quarterback in a couple of colleges when I was in school. And I remember throwing that thing. I wear a medium-large golf glove, ML, but that thing was hard to, it was hard to grip. I used to have to stretch my fingers. So that's why old-time quarterbacks always were the guys with the biggest hands, because literally you couldn't get your hand around it. It was just like a giant rugby ball, very round. And some big programs, even like Oklahoma and Nebraska, didn't pass one pass a game, but Joe Namath's form was so good at Alabama he could pass. It still wobbled some a lot of times, but he actually could throw touchdowns when other schools couldn't throw one pass. That's how ahead of his time he was. So he used to dunk too, two-handed in high school. That was probably pretty freakish because he's not really tall. But anyway, like I said, I'm not saying he's necessarily greater than anybody today, but I think you have to look at all records from 1981 when all the records, receiving and passing records, were shattered since 1981. You have to look at that with a grain of salt versus 1981 earlier, because Terry Bradshaw and all those guys, and they also called their own plays, a lot of them, they didn't have that grippy football, and it just kind of changed everything. So that's it. Those are just my thoughts. You may not agree with them, but if not, leave your comments, and we'll see you for the next video. Goodbye.